All right, awesome. Thank you so much for tuning back in to Getting Real with Rome. I'm here with Richard, the owner of Mane Tame. Richard, I met Richard at an event that we were doing out in LA. It was a barber expo and battle. And one of the major things that really impressed me about Richard was the way that Richard held himself and the way he brought something up to me that really sparked my interest, which interested me in having this conversation with him. Is he said, you know what, Rome, I started this business in my 30s and I grew it, and it's a different type of fear in your 30s and not having a direction versus now I have a very clear direction where I'm heading, but it's a different type of fear, and it's a good fear. It's almost an excitement. And that, like, immediately I was like, man, Richard knows what he's talking about. I'm excited to have this conversation. Richard, so tell me and a little bit of my audience as well about who you are, what you do here at Mane Tame, and then we'll kind of just kick it off from there and see where it takes us.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
It was a pleasure meeting you at that event. We were both at that event trying to promote ourselves and connect with a good audience there. So so I started Mane Tame in 2016. I have a business partner. We started, and we really could have done anything in 2016, but we were looking for something to do something special. We were looking to create a brand in a certain category that we can create and have an opportunity to make a difference. And, when my business partner and I sat down, he challenged me to come up with, a brand that could be in any category. We looked at everything. We looked at hair color, makeup, nail polish, men's, everything in the cosmetics and beauty industry, right? So that was sort of how we looked at it. And to answer your question about myself, that was when I had to look inward, and I looked at, you know what? I know that if I create a brand and if I create something, it's going to have to be authentic. It's going to have to be me. I'm going to have to inject and insert myself into anything that I do. Because just like we met at a trade show, in my background, I have a background in distribution. I would go to trade shows, and I know what it's like to go to a trade show, and you're sitting in front of cosmetologists or barbers, and they pick up your products, and they immediately ask you, tell me about this. What's so special about your product? What's so special? They look at your booth, they look at everything, and they want to know what's so special about it. So I knew I'm going to have to have answers for these questions. I'm going to have to feel comfortable when someone asks me, what's so special about this? Why did you design your product this way? Why did you make this set of products? So my background, I have a grandfather who was a barber. I have aunts and uncles who are cosmetologists and barbers. I pretty much grew up, Saturday mornings with my mom. My dad, he drove a trash truck. So, he worked 6 days a week. Saturday mornings, he was not home, he was out. So, I was always with my mom at nail salons and hair salons. That smell of lacquer and nail polish, in the 80s it was perms. That smell of formaldehyde, it's a funny smell to me because it's like very nostalgic.
Yeah.
So when I looked at my background, I thought, how can I do something that's different? And that led us to look at men's grooming. The beauty industry, if you look at it, is owned by pretty much 7 or 8 major corporations. They own over 180 different brands.
L'Oreal,
yeah. Revlon, Unilever,
Mm-hmm.
P&G, Coty, all these, Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson.
GE, right? Is GE one of the major players? Oh, no, they're more electric.
They're more electric. Yeah. There might be 1 or 2 I'm leaving out. But, when we looked at it, so I looked at the full landscape and looked at all these beauty brands. What I didn't see, or at least a very underrepresented category, was men's. I didn't see a lot of men's brands there. So I thought to myself, well, you know what? In 2016, maybe I can do a men's brand, but do it in the same way that these beauty brands do, but for barbers. And so that was our angle. That was our mission in the beginning, was to try to find an angle where we can go after barbers, bring in a high-end line at affordable pricing. And kind of like when we were talking, I might be jumping ahead a little bit.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
So, in pricing, we want it to be the least expensive of the luxury brands. There's so many dominant brands in the men's space, especially, we started in 2016. There are brands that have been full speed ahead since the, mid 2000s. And here we come in 2016. How do you make your mark? So it's impossible for me to outspend on media what some of these companies are doing. And it's impossible for me to beat them on price. But could I beat them on the way I deliver my products, on a product mix? Could I beat them on having a better story? So I looked at all the owners and I thought, how could I differentiate myself? And that was the beginning.
I like that. You know what really came to mind when you said, I want to be the most affordable of the luxury lines, right? That reminded me, and I hope you don't take offense to this, but that reminded me of like a Coach or like Michael Kors or like, you know what I mean? When you think luxury, you think Louis Vuitton, Michael Kors, Gucci, Givenchy, you think of these brands, right? And I'm thinking like, oh, that to me reminds me of like a Coach or like Michael Kors or something like that, like in that line, because I've never gifted any my girlfriends or my wife, my ex-wife, Michael Kors, and she complained about it. You know what I mean?
Right,
She's like, "This is awesome."
Yeah.
or anything like that. But like you think of like, I think of the luxury lines in the beauty industry because I'm on that end of things, on the cosmetology side of things, and I think of like a Kevin Murphy or Olaplex or something like that, and I'm like, okay, so those are more like the Louis Vuitton or like Givenchy or something like that. You know what I mean? And then I think of like a brand like Unite, and I'm like, okay, that's more like a that's more like a Coach or like in that line. And I like that because in men's wear, and like speaking from personally, there's no other line for men that come out to me that stand out other than like maybe Suavecito, right? But then I think about that and I'm like, oh, that's some stuff I was buying when I was a teenager, like in high school. Like, I think I'm not to say anything bad about the brand, but I think that I've moved past that. You know what I mean? And I'm ready for something else. And I don't really see a line out there other than yours that I see that's doing things at your level that is taking the risk that you're taking when it comes to what you're doing on social media, what you're doing in your line. You know, me looking into it, I see that you're out there and you're doing, and you're not afraid to like continue to do, you know? So like I see you and your barber's out there cutting hair outside. I see you filming behind the scenes. I see you and being interactive with your customers. And I don't really see that from other lines. Like I see that you're out there and you're willing to take that risk and you're willing to try it. And if it doesn't work, I could see that you're ready to move and you're more agile. I think that's the word I'm looking for, is you're more agile. And I really, really respect that. One thing that does come to mind is this. Tell me how you got here. Like, what was the pivoting point in your life where you said, you know what? Like, I'm ready to do something big in a different way. And how did you meet your partner in order to start this? And how did that interaction happen in order to get here? Right? What's that backstory?
Yeah. So okay, that's a funny story. So I didn't grow up thinking that I was going to start a men's brand. You know, when you're young, I guess I always gravitated towards business. My mom, when I would go to work with my mom, we would drop her off or something. I would see she worked in a big business, always worked in a big business, and she was always like suited up. And I would see the men in the parking lot with suits and going to these big, skyscrapers in LA. And I always thought, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be a businessman. My family, they own a boxing gym. My grandfather started a boxing gym in Azusa, California. And my grandfather never let me box. And I asked my dad, how come grandpa doesn't let me box? And my dad would tell me, that's not for you. That's for the kids that don't have other opportunities, which a little bit short-sighted. He should have let me, kind of get in there, and which I did later when I was 19. But growing up, I couldn't, and because my parents instilled education, and I saw businessman. So that was initially what I thought I was always going to do, but I didn't know exactly what. And for a long time, I didn't know how I was going to be a businessman or what kind of business I was even going to be in, because when I was growing up, let's just say high school or college years, I didn't see many businesses that I thought, that's exactly what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to do. There's very few things. The two things that came to mind was sports agent or broadcaster, which here we are. I made it.
We made it, man.
Thank you, bro. Yeah. No, so, Yeah. So after when I was graduating from college, I needed an internship. My cousin, who is the senior vice president of Ultimate Beauty Companies, she read an article that I read. I wrote an article in college that was picked up by Red Bull. I was an editor of my school newspaper. Shout out to University of Laverne. And so I was an editor of the
No
paper.
way. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I was an editor, and you get to write an editorial I think it was every week. I think it was every week episode, and it was Red Bull gives me and my GPA wings, right? And so no big
That's
deal.
really cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
so no big deal. You write this thing, and you just need to have a deadline. So I get it out. About a week later, they called me. One of the professors called me and said, "Richard, where are you?" And I said, "I don't remember where I was. I was doing something. I wasn't at school. It was like on a Friday morning." And they said, "The wings team from Red Bull is here." They sent the van with the wings on the side.
No way.
And they brought a pallet of Red Bull. Yeah, a pallet. And they wrote me a letter and said, "Thank you so much." I guess it got picked up by the Red Bull Santa Monica corporate headquarters, and they published it to show, at that time, this was 2009, to show at that time, hey, look, like college students are drinking Red Bull. And so that was kind of a big deal.
That's awesome.
So
Okay.
I still didn't know what I was going to do. I was a senior in college, and I had an internship class. That was my last class that I had. So I needed an internship. My cousin, who was a senior vice president at Ultimate Beauty Companies, she got me an interview with Murad Zahabian, who's my business partner, and he's also the owner of Ultimate Beauty Companies and Nancy's Beauty Warehouse. So at that time, they were looking for someone to do marketing projects. I had no options, okay? I had no options. This is crazy. $100,000 in debt. I had no options. I accepted an internship for $10 an hour. And I thought, fuck, this is scary. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right? And what do you do when your back's against the wall? What do you do when you have no options? And that was me. My back was against the wall. I had no options but a $10 an hour job at a beauty distribution company, writing copy, working on flyers and deal sheets, going to trade shows, building baker's racks. That was my life. And that was what I did. And from that point, working with Ultimate Beauty Companies, working for Murad, I sort of adopted the mentality of, I have no other choice. I have nothing else going on. I'm just going to say yes to everything. I'm going to say yes. Do you want to go to this show? Yes. Do you want to work on this flyer? Yes. And I remember I used to be outside of his office, and still, just like when I was young, had all the ambition, but I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But I knew when I was outside of his office, my desk used to be right outside of his office, and he has a big glass window. I would see people come in, and all these important people had to walk past my desk to go into his office. And I remember I was outside his office, and I would look inside and think, I should be in there. I should be in there contributing. I have ideas, and if anything, I can be a sounding board. I know that I'm not meant to sit out here. It was a sales office, so shout out to the sales office. It's not bad, but I'm not a salesperson. But I thought I feel like I can be contributing. So I just bid my time with Murad, and eventually in 2015 we got together, and I wanted to do more, and I came to him and said I wanted to do more. I asked for his blessing. Can I do more, or is it time for me to look for another job? And he was like, absolutely not. You're like family. Why don't we figure out a scenario that can work for both of us? And that's where Blueprint Ideation was born. Blueprint Ideation is the company that owns Mane Tame.
Okay.
And I created that, again, thinking big, looking at the landscape of the beauty industry. I thought, I want to be another P&G. I want to be a Cody. I want to be a brand. So Mane Tame is just going to be the first.
Yeah.
We're going to do Mane Tame, then we're going to do Mane Tame hair, then Mane Tame skin, then Mane Tame body products, then we're going to do Mane Tame for her, then we're going to do Mane Tame pet. And I was trying to think big. Then I'll create another brand or apps, and everything could be under the Blueprint Ideation portfolio. Again, just trying to really, really think big. And that's how I got to 2016 and we started Mane Tame.
Richard, one thing that I can see that's consistent from your story is this vision for the future. From the time that you were in in your the I was gonna say barbershop, but in the cosmetology nail shop, right? And thinking, I want to do boxing. To why won't my parents let me do boxing? To going through high school and thinking, all right, I want to be a businessman, and then the iteration and going into your college years, what you said, right? And writing the editorial, getting picked up by Red Bull and thinking, all right, what's next? What is and it's funny because this is like a consistent theme that I see with big thinkers, big visionaries, is they're always on to the next thing in their mind. They may not be there physically, but they're there in their mind. They're building something in their mind. And it just reminds me that no building can be built like off of a whim. You know what I mean? Blueprints have to be constructed, right? The thought of making this happen, it has to happen here before it happens here, and then it happens in reality, right? And I can see that consistently. Let me ask you this. There's so much I want to unpack here, man. Where did I start first? Okay, let's go back a little bit. What was that feeling of now you got this internship, $10 an hour, you're working for this beauty company, you get thrown into a position where you got to do some marketing, you're kind of wearing a little bit of multiple hats. How are you educating yourself to level up? Because obviously your business partner wouldn't have seen something in you to partner with you and to build Mane Tame if that spark in you wasn't early on. So what was it that you were doing to educate yourself to continue to level up during those early phases?
That's a really good question because it allows me to go back. Everything, by the way, I'm going to go back on a lot of stuff because
I love it.
The more I think about why we do things, a lot of those things are seeds that are rooted in our past. My first job was actually at Target, and I was 15 and a half years old. I was working at Target. I could only work 8 hours a week because I was still in high school. So I would work, a couple hours a night or, 4 hours each on the weekends. I was in the beauty section, very fortuitous. They would put me in the beauty section, and all I would do for a few hours is just front face products. That's it. I would go down the line to where when my manager at the time, when she would walk down the aisle, she would look and make sure everything was flush, right? She wanted to see all the products brought to the front and front faced. Well, it didn't take that long. So, when you go to Target and you put stuff in the basket and you go there and you're like, you know what, I changed my mind about this. I'm going to go ahead and leave that. Or when people go to guest services and they return products, right? Well, all that stuff has to go in a cart. I would stock that stuff, restock it if it was good. So when I was restocking products, I didn't know it. Now it all makes sense. But at the time, I was just curious. I was really curious about why do they use this color? Why are so many tanning products orange, right? Why don't people use red enough? Why do they use these sizes? And then some little spark, if you ask like, where was the first spark of business? Here was the spark of just business, okay? It was when the first spark was seeing my mom work in this big building. The second spark was I was stocking beauty products and I was like, who owns this product? I became fascinated in the story of all on, the back of the back of a bottle or a jar, there's a story about the brand or a story about that product. I would read the story. Then underneath it says, who makes that product? So I would see Procter Gamble. I'm like, wow, they own a few beauty products. That's amazing. Then something magical happened. One day, I got put in the chemicals and bleach department, restocking boxes of bleach. It's kind of heavy and detergents and things like that. And I don't know what brand it was. I couldn't tell you now. I was 15 and a half years old. But I looked at the back of one of those things and I thought, no shit, Procter and Gamble. I went home and I told my mom,
again. Yeah.
Mom, I didn't know that a company could own other companies and other industries. It was like my mind just unlocked. And I thought, wow, that's possible? You could do that? And so that's kind of how, that planted that early seed. So when I had a chance to create Mane Tame, I was always very curious from an early age at brands and stories. And I guess I'm the type of person where I turned a negative into a positive. And here's what I mean by that. I'm the type of person that when It's funny. My wife and I were doing this past weekend, so it's like we still do it together. I drive by billboards and I look at what the goal is of that billboard, and I could see ways that I would have done it better. And subconsciously, it's not a very good thing, by the way. If people have that, it's like, it's kind of toxic. But like,
I agree.
I'll be at an airport and I'll look at men's shoes and I'll just be looking around thinking like, what was he thinking? This guy gave up on life. That is not cool. This is good. I like those. Those look uncomfortable. I'm always like sort of tearing things apart, sort of reverse engineering what people are wearing, reverse engineering ads and billboards and everything. So when I got my start here, as an intern, as a very young entrepreneur, I was curious about why certain brands worked and why certain brands didn't. Eventually, I worked my way to be able to sit into the purchasing meetings and be able to see some of the brands when they would send care packages in. And I would look and I would see some beautiful care packages. The box are perfect, the font is perfect, the texture is perfect, the product smells good, it's priced well, everything was really good, right? And then we would decide to bring it in, we would sell it here in our store online, and the products would fall flat on their face. And it was fascinating to me. This brand seemingly did everything right, and no one wants it. Then another brand, they do everything wrong. They don't have inventory. They're always out of stock. The packaging is very cheap, low quality. The marketing is very gimmicky. And I think this brand sucks. And then you look, can't keep it on the shelf, right?
Wow.
And I was fascinated with trying to understand and figure that out. Why do some people gravitate towards certain things? That was why I looked inward. Again, that curiosity. It's sort of like, where do you apply that curiosity? I started to apply that curiosity inward. Because as we were creating products, I said to myself, you know what? What's a fact? I saw brands that did everything right and they couldn't get off the ground. I might be that. You know, certain songs are a hit, certain songs aren't. I saw the statistic the other day where it showed Justin Bieber, Drake, and two other people.
Taylor Swift. I think I saw the same.
Taylor Swift, and there might have been one other person. It was four
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
And it said the percentage of their hits. It said how many hits they've had versus how many songs they had. And Drake, I think Drake was like 28% of his songs are hits. I think Justin Bieber was number one. He had the highest percentage, but it wasn't past 30.
Wow.
And it basically goes to show we give up after the first podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for not giving up.
Thank you, bro.
People give up after their first Instagram reel. People give up after a video, or people give up after making a product, or one company, or one brand. Yet we see some of the biggest celebrities and most successful people, they've continued to put out their art. And that's exactly what business is to me. It's an art.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that specifically, what is art? Art is an expression. So I told myself, you know what? I'm going to design a product. I'm going to design a set of products and a brand, and I'm going to make an artistic expression of it. I'm going to make sure that I like it. I'm going to ask myself, what do I like? Why do I like what I like? And I'm going to make sure that the fragrance, the packaging, the performance, the way the products interact, I'm going to make that an artistic expression. Because, kind of a rhetorical question, can art be wrong? Art can't be wrong.
Can't be, yeah.
Art is an expression. So if art can't be wrong, I'll be successful day one. Day one, when I create my product, I'm already successful because I'm making art. It doesn't matter if a painting sells or doesn't sell. Does that painter consider himself an artist only when his painting sells? No. He's an artist when he buys the materials, lays on the floor, and starts working. And as an entrepreneur, you're an artist too once you start creating, especially if you're an entrepreneur that creates products. Once you start creating products that are original and authentic to you, that's art. And so I had to guarantee a way that I can be successful. I can't guarantee if all my products are going to be hits. Some are and some aren't. But I can guarantee and I could tell you, I could explain every single product and tell you what went into it, what we were thinking, and why we did it. And so for me, I wanted to find a way to guarantee I was going to be successful, and that's how we did it in the very beginning.
Wow, man, that dropping some bombs right now. I really appreciate that because, you know, another whole thing for me to unpack here, which I love, which is I heard this saying, it was this crunched up tin can with the top cut out and a candle put inside of it. And this artist said, if I place this in the middle of an Art Deco gallery with the candle lit, all the lighting around it turned down, this tin can with the candle in it is art. If I take the same tin can and I move it into my garage where there's a bunch of shit, this same tin can went from being art where everyone rivals over to just some other shit in my garage that needs to be thrown away. She said, so you can spend all your time designing the art or creating the environment that you place that art in, right? And I think about your story, right? I think about your story, and it reminds me of that because you said an entrepreneur and an artist, you're not an entrepreneur when you have the recognition and the business. You're an entrepreneur when you put your head down and you get your ass to work. You're not an artist when you have your painting hanging on the wall and people are looking at it and praising it. You're an artist when you buy that material, you take that risk and you go in that room and you get your ass to work, you start painting. And your story just reiterates that entrepreneur spirit of you designing the environment that you're around because you were forced into a situation and you're designing it. You're picking and choosing. You're like, yes, all right. You could have easily said, no, you know what? I've got a flyer to work on. I'm not going to go to that trade show. But you're like, you know what? Design. Let's go. I'm in that trade show. Designing a flyer. I'm busy doing this, but yeah, let's do it. You know what I mean? So it's constantly choosing to design your environment that's getting you to where you want to be. And I think that so many people forget that. So many people feel like they need to stick in the status quo and they need to fit in their little cubby, right? And it's so hard because it's hard. It's hard being uncomfortable. And I think that I can tell that you've become very comfortable with being in uncomfortable situations. So let me go back a little bit because you said something that resonates with me very much so, which is you said that you and your wife, you're looking at billboards, you're looking at things, right? And you're constantly improving them in your mind, right? So how do you feel like, is that something that you've developed over the years? Is that something that just happened randomly? Like when did that start happening for you in your life that you started looking at things, breaking them down and trying to figure out how to make them better?
Great question. When did that begin? The best thing that I can think of is, and I kind of touched on turning a negative into a positive.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have this gift. We all remember the negative more than the positive. I remember every single insult, every single slight. I remember everything. I don't remember people ever telling me, and they have. I'm fortunate. People have said congratulations for a variety of things, or awards that I've won, or just nice things that have happened for me. I think it's easy to focus on the negative, and so I guess I was able to turn negatives into positive in this one way. And when I give presentations sometimes, I always start with asking this question: how many of you care what people think about you more than you would like? Raise your hand. Okay.
For sure.
Right, of course. I think that people all have that same commonality, but they don't use it the right way. I care too much what people think. I'm my biggest critic. So I look at something and I'm embarrassed by my original packaging. It's embarrassing because I deconstruct it. So when you're young and you look at yourself in the mirror, and I hope, all of my future children, I hope your children, and I hope everyone that we care about doesn't look at themselves in the mirror and think, I suck and my wardrobe sucks. But there is a little bit of value in that. If you look at yourself and you think, I suck. If you look at your bank account and think that sucks. If you look at your packaging and you think that sucks. If you look at your social media and you think my social media sucks, right? Then you can take action. Then you can work on something to improve that. So the billboards, that's just a fun thing. It's a fun sort of exercise when you're sitting in traffic. But when it comes to videos or it comes to style or wardrobe, I think how can things be better? But to answer your question, what the original thing, because it originally wasn't billboards. Actually, I think it was music videos, to be honest with you. That was
Okay,
the original thing that I would look at music videos, and I would watch Hype Williams videos, and I would watch these videos, and there's nothing more disappointing when there's a fire song and you go to watch the video and the video sucks. And you think
all the time, man.
they're
I don't know
butchering
why.
this.
Yeah.
They're butchering this. Like, this is probably like a very unpopular opinion, okay? But like, I love the Kanye West song "Runaway." Have you heard that song? Like,
Runaway.
It goes ding, ding. No,
I don't think
I'm
so.
not gonna sing on your
Yeah,
podcast,
yeah.
but anyways,
Let's go, man.
everyone knows
American
okay,
Idol.
yeah, Kanye West.
Okay.
"Runaway."
Okay.
If you watch the video, and I may be totally unsophisticated, but it's ballet dancers dancing around while he's playing a dirty piano, wearing a white tuxedo outside. And it has nothing to do with what they're talking about in the song. So that's just like a small example
I see
of
what
me
you're saying.
watching music videos
Yeah.
and think, I wouldn't have done it that way. You asked me a question earlier. What did Murad think in order to give me this opportunity?
Yeah.
I feel like I had curiosity, number one, and perspective. I have opinions on everything. I'm a very judgmental person. I try to guide it in a very productive way,
Yeah.
right? So if I think someone doesn't look good today, I won't tell them that. But
Yeah.
tomorrow, if they look really nice, I'll say, hey, bro, I like that hat.
Yeah.
I like that shirt. I like the way it fits on. That's cool. Try to positive reinforcement. But I have a perspective.
I like that. Okay.
And I look at people and I think, if this person was a character in my movie, how would I dress them? They could be so much more. And that's one of the things I enjoy the most about using that in a positive way, is thinking, how could people be so much more? And I apply that to my staff here, my barber team that I collaborate with on you see them on social media and at trade shows. We're together a lot. And I look at people and I think, how could they be better? And can I help them be better? How can I be better? And I think just that curiosity and having a perspective on things, if you have curiosity and perspective, you are already ahead of the game. Because so many people, like you said, settle for the status quo. It's comfortable to not do a podcast. It's comfortable to not venture out. It's comfortable to not take a pay cut and to go work for, I'm sure government agencies are awesome, but to me, I looked at having a government agency job as that's cool, but that's not very exciting. That's all I'll ever be. I won't know what's inside. I want to find out what's inside. I went skydiving in March, and people asked me, why do you want to go skydiving now? And I said, because I have a problem feeling. I don't feel anything. We were talking before we started. We have some legal things going on and some very pressing things, right?
Yeah.
It takes all of my attention and energy, but I don't feel that. I don't feel it. It doesn't hit me at my core. So that's kind of like one of those things where like, it's good because you compartmentalize, you don't deal with it as part of business, cost of doing business. You just push through that.
Yeah.
But skydiving, I want to feel something. I want to feel scared because I don't feel things so much. You know?
Wow. You know, okay. I love it, man, because I love where this conversation is going. One, I have to say, is I don't think the average person looks at billboards and deconstructs it and tries to make it better for fun. But I think that is a telling factor of why you're building such an incredible brand, is because the average person isn't looking at billboards or music videos and thinking, how do I make this better? Or how would I have done this? I think that people are just, and there's nothing negative about it, but most people are so consumed with their lives and just busy in general that they're, driving past these things and seeing these videos for entertainment purposes. But for you, because of the way that your mind works, is you're like, how would I have said that better? How would I have done that better? Why are they using those colors as opposed to anything else? Right? Why is their story like this? Why did Procter Gamble buy them or start this? Right? So like I could already see your gears moving at a young age into where you're at now. So let's take all of that meat and potatoes, right? And move it forward into where you're at now. What was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome in order to start Mane Tame?
There have been so many hurdles to start Mane Tame. Well, we started with a $7,500 investment to make one product. And that product was a beard oil.
Got it.
If that one product wouldn't have sold well, we wouldn't be sitting here today, and I wouldn't have the team that I have and the company that I have. So I guess the first hurdle was, well, the biggest hurdle. The biggest hurdle was making sure we sold those products in a few months so we'd have more money to make more products. That was the biggest hurdle in the beginning. The first year, biggest hurdle, got sued. We got sued our first year by another company. I think we're good to go now. I won't say the company's name, but
Yeah.
our name was very similar to their name.
Okay.
And we filed for the trademark first, but they still had an argument in it. So it's funny because that lawsuit cost me, in the first year of business, we did $25,000 in sales. The first year of business, the whole year, $25,000 in sales. 2 partners, that's not a lot of money to share, right? Not a lot to go around. So we had a lawsuit. That lawsuit ended up costing us $17,000. Year one.
Wow.
Year one, $17,000. And that hurt. Funny, I offered that company $10,000 just to settle. They said no. So it would have been cheaper for them to do that. In the end, I paid my lawyer $17,000. I don't know what they paid their lawyers. So that was the biggest challenge early on is, how do we come up with this funding? How do we keep this company afloat? From there, it was a race to stay profitable. It was a race to say, okay, how can we get sales? How can we get our name out there? And you look at brands and you have to promote, you have to be outside, you have to have shows, you have to have a team. So building a team was hard, and being attractive to people was hard. I was, again, I was doing anything and everything in order to get my name out there so I can continue to make more products. Yeah. And you make some mistakes along the way, but that was the original intersections, the neighborhood of intersections, I would say.
Yeah.
Is just getting off the ground, just launching.
Yeah.
Just launching.
And for all of you out there that are a nerd like me, 25,000 sales first year, 17,000 in cost for lawyer, plus 7,500 startup, that's 24,500. So first year, a $500 profit. Ouch. First year. What kept you going? Like what motivated you to say, you know what? So many people would have looked at that situation and been like, dude, like, this is not for me. I'm going to go get a job, or I'm going to go do something else. Like, what motivated you to keep pushing? Because that was back in 2016.
Yeah.
So we're 2024 at the recording of this video. What pushed you to make it past that first year?
Crowd surfing.
Okay.
Type of thing. Where, back to my analogy as being an artist and a painter, it only takes one person to buy your painting and you feel successful, right? If you make music and someone says, I love that song connects with me. So I felt in the very beginning, I didn't need the money. My business partner's gonna kill me. But he's like, yes, we did need the money all along, but I didn't need that to feel successful.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure what I needed, but when I had someone tell me, hey, your logo, I really connect with that. I identify with that, right? Mm-hmm. The second year we were in business, we went to a trade show. Actually, it might have been the third year. It was a little rocky the first couple of years. But the third year, we went to a show. We had a customer in Laredo, Texas. Shout out to Clipper Depot. So we went to Laredo, Texas, and he was a distributor of Mane Tame products. And everybody there at that show was all barbers and cosmetologists. They were coming to hear our presentation and to learn more about Mane Tame. After the presentation, I had a business owner. He was a barbershop that sold our products. So he bought Mane Tame from a distributor in Laredo. He came up to me and he said, hey, bro, I just want to thank you. Because of you, because of your products, because of your beard oil specifically, because of your beard oil, my wife and I are able to pay our Mercedes payment every month. And I was like,
Wow. That's a
wow,
good feeling.
it was such a good feeling. I didn't know how to process that, but I felt like such a winner. I felt so successful that comment, it got me through a few months of ups and downs, because I can always go back to that comment and think, wow, because of something I created that sparks enough feelings and emotions that someone even wants to buy it to resell it, so much so that they could pay their car payment with it. Wow, what have I done here? I'm onto something.
It's crazy to think that when you take a risk for yourself, it impacts so many people that you're not even aware. You're not aware of someone's situation, their relationship situation, their financial situation, their family situation, right? But when you take the risk in building something and you put yourself out there, you put that product or that service out there, you have no idea who you're impacting in a positive way. And I think that's the beautiful thing about business, right? That's a driving factor for me ever since that moment. Just like you, man, that like touches my heart, because I understand that feeling of what you felt when your client said, because of this product, I'm able to make my car payment, right? And that, like, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but that in itself helps so many aspects of just that person, right? Like when you're not in a relationship and you have money issues and you're like, oh, what do we pay? The grocery bill or the the car payment? You know what I mean? So like that little thing pulled so many different strings, because they can make their car payment. There's so many other things that alleviates their mind from a family perspective that they don't have to worry about now, right? Making financial decisions, right? So because you put everything, all of your efforts into your product and making it the best that you can, you were able to provide something to someone that you didn't even know existed until that moment, right?
Yeah.
Like that is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. Let me ask you this. Let's fast forward to modern day. And I want to know, what's the state of Mane Tame right now? Like, where are you guys at right now? And then where's the future look like for you guys?
Yeah. So right now we are very blessed. We're very blessed to have, don't remember if it's 8 or 9 people on the team, on our professional team. We have a team of cosmetologists and barbers who represent our line. We have about 24 products. We are in most of the states, definitely most major markets in the country. And right now, we're fighting, man. We are fighting. It is a battle. It's a battle because in the beginning, especially for young entrepreneurs, knowing what is success to you is very important. And if you were to ask me, what took so long? What took so long to be in this position, right? It's that I just wanted to start something. And then you create a brand because you thought creating a brand would make you a successful person. And you feel successful for a little while, but then you realize this isn't everything. There's more. Then you go, I want to build a team. Then you get the team and you realize there's more. Then you think, well, I started a company. I have products. I have a team. I want to go to trade shows and broadcast myself. Then you do that. Then you make the hype videos. Again, I like music videos. So you make a cool video, you're at a show. It's cool. Then you come back from a show. You have beautiful products. They all smell good, work great. And you have a team. Everyone respects you. You love them. They love you. Everything is wonderful. You have a hype video. Everything is great. No one gives a shit.
Yeah.
You really need to define success. And for me, that has slowed me down a bit. I'm glad though, because it taught me a lot of lessons along the way that you need to know. You can't just go to a trade show to go to a trade show. You have to have a goal. You need to do work before the show, at the show, and after the show. You need to be organized, have leads, things like that.
Yeah.
And that applies to every part of the business. If you're making a product, there's lots of, I say no a lot to product development. Right now I oversee almost all of that. When it comes to product development, I won't do something just to do it. I've done that before and it's been complete failures and utter flops. When I make products, I have to make it for a reason. And I think, who is this for? So when I develop a product, if I can't make it for myself, like as an example, I don't use beard oil. I don't have that much facial hair to use beard oil, but I use hairspray, and I use I use our aftershave balm, and I use our shaving gel. So I look at ways to say, okay, what's the purpose of this? What's successful about this product? How could this product be successful? And so those are things that I look at, and I've looked at along the way of like a course correcting myself to get to this point of like, what is success? Where we're at right now, in a lot of ways, we are more successful than I imagined because I applied an artistic approach to it. So we're more successful than I imagined. Yet it's like scaling a mountain. You climb the mountain, you think that's the top, and then you realize there's there's much more peaks up the mountain, and there's valleys along the way up that mountain. There's more, right, to it. And so right now we have products, we have a fantastic team. We are now looking to expand our distribution. That's the biggest goal of this year and next year, is to expand our distribution. Because right now we're only available on Amazon, on our website, manetame.com, and then in barbershops and salons and barber supply stores. Where we're going to next is going to be to opening up to some nationwide chains, some nationwide salon and barbershop chains.
I see.
That's the goal for us. But, I'm one brand and there's 500 other brands that want the same thing.
Yeah.
And so applying that curiosity that I have of how do we bridge that gap? How do we get there in 1 year and not 12 years? I was talking to my Amazon team a couple weeks ago, and I asked them, I chose a product. They're very good at selling my best product. They're very good at that. And they have feelings when we're out of stock. They don't like it, obviously. It hurts sales. But I told them, pretend we don't have these products, right? If our product mix is like a basketball team, right? I'm a big Lakers fan, right? I hate the Celtics. I don't care that they just won. I hate Boston Celtics. Okay. So our product mix, if we're going to be out of stock on like two of our best sellers, I look at that like the Lakers not having LeBron James and Anthony Davis for the playoffs. If you know they're not going to be there for the playoffs, or you can't depend on either one of them in big game situations, you have to build a strategy around other products. And so I challenged my Amazon team with, if I wanted you to take a non-bestseller, make it a bestseller, and I gave you 10 years to do it, could you do it? And the answer is yes, of course. How could they say no? I position them where you can't say no to that. It's like, you're the wrong company if you can't do it in 10 years. So then it's like, well, how can you do it faster? How could you take this product that's not a bestseller and make it a bestseller in 1 year? What goes into that?
Okay.
What goes into that? And those are things that we're looking at now. How can we do things faster and better? How can we get distribution, the best partners? How could we get them now and faster? And it's a challenge. It's frustrating because I have answers to billboards, music videos, products, clothes, fashion, shoes. I have answers for that. What I don't have answers for, the most disappointing thing, and I'm sure there's other artists or entrepreneurs that are disappointed in the same thing, is how, gosh, it's so discouraging sometimes when customers fall for gimmicks. When customers fall for gimmicky brands or gimmicky companies that don't have substance, right? It's almost like,
I know exactly how you feel, man.
it's like losing your dream girl to some moron meathead. And you're like, that guy? You like that guy?
Yeah.
And you know that guy. You know that guy, what he's like in the locker room. You know what he's like on the football field. You know what he's like at the gym. You know what he's like privately. And you think this guy's a moron. And everybody likes this guy. That's what I'm going through right now. And we are successful. We're very blessed, but we really want to get to the next stage. Okay. And when I look at the landscape, I see huge opportunity because no one is speaking like we're speaking, presenting ourselves like we're presenting ourselves. But it's sort of cracking that Da Vinci Code and unlocking that of, why are people falling for that? And then you think, should I pivot? Should I make pop music instead of being a poet? Yeah. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky. Should I make cheaper products so I could have a more affordable product. And that's where, the art and the business are sort of kind of looking at each other face to face and saying, well, let's blow up this distribution. Let's do whatever we have to do, to be successful, to have our products in every single barbershop and every single salon. But then the artistic side is, I don't want to compromise our values. I don't want to compromise our packaging. Those are the things that we're looking at. And those are the tough decisions that we have ahead of us. So we're successful. I'm making it seem like we're not. It's because I always focus on the things that are going wrong. And as a CEO, I'm thinking not right now, and I don't celebrate the successes, but I worry about 24 months from now. I used to always say, I'm not worried about the people ahead of us. I'm not worried about the other brands that exist in the market today. What I'm worried about is the brand that hasn't even started yet. I'm worried about the guy that's working in a warehouse that has a dream. I'm worried about the guy that's an intern right now in an office sitting in some distribution company that thinks I could do that better.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of. So I'm trying to disrupt myself before someone comes and disrupts us.
That mentality is such a pivotal way to think and look at your business, because if you are your best friend and your worst enemy at the same time, you are constantly playing offense and defense, and you are constantly breaking down your new launch, and you're like, all right, amazing, yes, successful, but what could we have done better? What would have somebody else have done better? And I think that's what always keeps you on your toes. That's what always keeps you moving forward. Even me with this podcast, like we had a little mini conversation before this. I'm like, man, like I look back at my first few podcasts and the ones that I'm editing now, and I'm just like, oh, why would I say that way? And why do I say, or like all the time, like those little phrases? Why do I do that? So I'm constantly breaking down what I'm doing to get better and reiterate. Because just like you said, there is somebody out there that is hungry. I remember you said this at the show that we were talking about. You said, when it comes to clippers, you said, that's a game that we haven't ventured into yet, because I understand where I can win. And I understand that right now there's somebody out there. And I remember you said, Roma, it's not that we're not ready to do that. It's just that I know my lane, and I know where I want to win in. And right now we're not ready for that, because I know that someone out there right now, their whole life is obsessed with making this thing, one thing, the best thing that they can make it. And I had a lot of appreciation for that, because I remember telling you, there's so many brands out there that I see that try to like do this and do that and do this and do this. And then, let's also do that. You know what I mean? And what ends up happening is they start getting diluted, right? The analogy that I like to use is, if you get $100 every month and you start putting $5 in a bunch of little buckets, right? At the end of the year, you're like, it's not really that much money in each bucket. But if you have $100 and you split that focus into one or two, or even at max 3 different buckets, at the end of the year, every single month, you're splitting that money into those few little buckets. At the end of the year, you're like, all right, cool, I've got something valuable here, right? And I see that your mindset is moving in that direction. You're like, I know where I can win, and this is where I want to stay right now. And I like that you're always open to reiterating. You're always open to making things better. You're always open. I think that's what winners are made of. And I like that, man. I could see that. Kind of taking a step in an interesting direction here is who do you look up to? Who are your influences?
That's a great question. Another great question. I feel like I get inspiration from not one person. Like, as an example, and I feel like a lot of people I speak with, especially when I speak to younger men, we work with a lot of barbers, so I have an opportunity to speak with them. A lot of people, so many people are lacking mentors, And we find our mentors on TV and in movies and things like that. So for me, growing up, I didn't have a lot of mentors, and I didn't have a lot of guidance. I would just take pieces. It's sort of like before you get married, you date all these girls, hopefully, and you take the best of them, and you're like, I like the way that this one communicated. I like the way this one listened. I like the way that this girl really was so driven. I like the way this girl, she would rather read than watch TV. Or I like the way this girl was adventurous and took me out of my comfort zone, so I didn't turn into a couch potato, right? So, and then you meet your wife and you hope you put all those pieces together and you're like, oh my God, wow, I got all these things plus, 1,000 more wonderful qualities. It's great.
Yeah.
For business and just in health in general, I look at people that are winning, and I feel like I'm slowly making that transition as I'm improving my situation in life and I'm in different rooms with different people. You can look at someone and just think, damn, this guy, he must have made a lot of good decisions in his life. Good belt line, good shoes, good watch, well organized, communicates well. I look at entrepreneurs that have it all. Aesthetically all. I look at people that are disciplined. To me, there's nothing more sexy than discipline. When someone has discipline mixed with aggressiveness, I feel like those two can be a very dangerous combination. And actually, if you were to really think about it, I believe that if you can be nothing else, just be aggressive. You're going to step on some toes. You're going to go in circles. You're going to say things you shouldn't, right? You might get into a couple fights when you're younger. Hope not.
Yeah.
But, being aggressive, there's so much that comes from that. There's so many good things in my personal life that could have gone way better if I would have been more aggressive. I'll give you an example. My brother, he's a very eccentric, extroverted person. And he would do these things that would scare me. We would go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? We'd go to Kentucky Fried Chicken, order food, and he would order his food. I would order food, then he would go after me, or some version of that, or he would go first, and I would go second. I don't know. He would order food, and after he was done ordering, he would say, "Hey, can you throw in a free drink?" And I would freak out, have a panic attack. I'm like, oh, you can't. What are you doing? You're embarrassing me. And how unhealthy is that? He's embarrassing me. Like, that's impossible. But I'm like, he's embarrassing me. He's embarrassing her. He's gonna get her fired. No joke, 7 out of 10 times, he would get a free French fry or a free drink. They would say, "Okay, sweetie, no problem." The power of just asking.
Yeah.
Versus I grew up. It's just I have one brother. I'm the oldest. The oldest child. Usually the oldest child, they follow the rules. They don't break anything. They do what they're told. I was never taught that you could do that.
Yeah.
And in business, not only should you do that, you have to do that. You have to be aggressive. You have to be disciplined. So for me, I gravitate towards anybody that has the results of being a disciplined person. I think that that's really attractive. And I think those are admirable qualities, discipline.
I like that. I like that because that is something that in my personal life I'm currently working on. Is I have a few deep conversations with just a very small circle of friends that I have, and we constantly push each other to be better at our whatever our crafts are. And I was talking to a good buddy of mine, and he's like, "Man, what are you working on this year? Like, what's this season's effort?" And I'm like, discipline. There's a lot of things I've gotten really, really good at, and I feel very confident in. I'm like, but I feel like I could have been so much better at the building process and getting those things if I would have just been more disciplined. So like picking up books like Extreme by Jocko Willings, I think it's called.
Ownership?
Extreme Ownership. Yeah. Extreme Ownership. Looking at people like David Goggins and like these just extreme over the top, like mega disciplined individuals. Right. And I'm like, wow, how do I incorporate that? So let me ask you this with what you're doing here and what, I like to have these philosophical talks is because it bleeds into so many things, right? Like who we are bleeds into everything around us, right? I think Jim Rohn once said, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. but if you work hard on yourself, you'll make, yeah, he said, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. If you work harder on yourself, you'll make a fortune.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you develop the skill set that you need in order to be the CEO of not only just Mane Tame, but your bigger vision, which was what
Blueprint ideation.
Blueprint ideation. How do you develop the skill set in order to run all of this operation?
I turn a negative into a positive in the form of podcasts. I consume a lot of podcasts, sometimes too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes too much. But I consume a lot of podcasts, and I specifically look for the podcasts that address what stage I'm at in the various areas of my life. If there's a podcast about starting a business, I might not listen to that because I've already started, unless that's part of a bigger conversation. But I like to consume podcasts because I once heard this from Tai Lopez. I think Tai Lopez said this. He said, and it's totally changed my way of thinking. If I told you that there's a guy in the next room who started a $100 billion retail company, and he's going to tell you how he did everything, would you go sit in that room and listen to him? All of us would say, absolutely. And he said, well, great, because Bill Walton, or not Bill Walton, Walmart, right? There's a book. Is his name?
Sam Walton.
I'm sure because Bill Walton just died.
Yeah.
Rest in peace. Yeah, Sam Walton. He said Sam Walton wrote a whole book on Walmart, and he tells you how he did it. All the secrets are there. All the secrets. And everything we've done, it's already been done before. There are secrets everywhere. And our job as entrepreneurs is to unlock those secrets. They're there waiting for us. There are books that have all the information you need to be a great dad, to be the best husband, to be the best entrepreneur, to create products, to assemble a team, to be in shape. And if we don't consume those things, that's our fault. We have an obligation as entrepreneurs and as husbands and parents and leaders. We have a responsibility to be the best that we can possibly be for the people who depend on us. And so that's kind of what I look at, So I try to consume a lot. I try to read a lot. I try to listen to podcasts, and I specifically hunt for the people that have done the things I need to do, that are doing the things that I want to be doing. And I try to just get one nugget of information. I used to drive to work every day. It takes me about 50 minutes to 60 minutes to drive to my office and then back. So I'm in my car 2 hours a day. And a few years ago, I was driving to work and I was singing songs. I knew every word of almost every song in my Apple Music.
Guilty of it. I'm guilty of it.
How unhealthy is that of me that I don't know Spanish? 10 hours a week, I'm in my car. I could be learning Spanish. I could be consuming podcasts. I could be getting an edge back to my competitor, my enemies who are working harder than me. I need to catch up with them. If I have $100 million company, maybe I have the luxury to listen to music. Maybe I have the luxury to make phone calls and just chit chat with my grandma, which I need to call her back. But right now I need to be heads down and driven. Yeah. If you were in law school, all of us, we would go home, we would not turn the TV on, we'd make a pot of coffee, we'd sit there and we would read. But as entrepreneurs, we're free. We have no boss. Our boss is our customer. And the result of what they think about us is in our bank account. And we don't realize we need to apply a student mentality. We need to never stop learning because we don't have the information, and the information is out there. And it's up to us to be good students and go out and get that information and apply the learning. Because there's a lot of people that don't read or don't listen to podcasts. Then there's a lot of people that do, but they never take action. They never start the podcast. They never go to the trade show. They never apply the discipline. They don't apply anything. So being a good student, 50% is the going and getting it and consuming, but the other part is action, actually applying the lessons. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Wow, mic drop, man. That's powerful. And it's so true. If we were in law school, man, we would eat, breathe, sleep those textbooks, right? There'd be a period of time where that's all our entire lives encompass. Same thing if we were going through like BUDS training for becoming a Navy SEAL. Our entire being would be consumed with this concept of doing everything in our power to become this Navy SEAL, right? And I like that because when we go through these phases in life where we want to get to that next level, we need to have the discipline to be consumed by it in order to get to that next level, because there is someone out there that is absolutely consumed by it, that is absolutely in it. I remember when I first started learning marketing 10 years ago, I was buying every program, spending every dollar I could to learn from people like Ty Lopez or Billie Jean or like these marketing gurus, right? Because I was like, I don't know what I don't know. And I would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning, just like deep diving, consuming information. And I could tell that is a pivotal part that so many people forget, even myself at this stage, because we get comfortable. I know that I've gotten comfortable in my life at a lot of things, and I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I could have been so much further if I would have just not got comfortable where I was. And I think that for me, that's a big play. It's like, I've gotten so good at making my own money, like on my own terms, that it sometimes is a big pullback factor for me, because I'm like, oh, I don't really need to go to work today. I don't really need to do this today, right? Just like you said, we get home, we're driving from one appointment to the next, or from one location to our home to our office, and we're like, I'm just gonna listen to some music. I don't really need to read that book.
Yeah.
Put the audible book on. So I like that. Richard, I really want to close out on with some really quick questions.
Sure.
Okay. So one is, this is a question that I hear on a few other podcasts, and I really like this. Is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice that I've ever found to be useful is to use your voice and to apply what you have, what you've learned. Because like I was saying, there are people who have already done what we want to do. There's, what we want, there's only so many personality types in the world. So what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go has already been done. However, we don't know them. And we, as entrepreneurs, we're not at stage one, right? Whatever stage we're at, we're not at stage one anymore. We've sort of advanced a little bit. So the best piece of advice I've given is to trust your voice. Trust your voice and communicate that, because there are people that will never go on a podcast, but they need the guidance. They need help. There are people that are lost. They need to hear from us. So the best advice for me that I carry with me almost on a daily basis is that exact thing, is to go, well, how can I be the person that I need to be? That's a very important thing to do. Again, back to knowing who you are and knowing where you're going. So I look at that advice of communicating that, and I found that to be very helpful and very gratifying, because where I've gotten things wrong in business, it's when I've not been authentic and I tried to speak or do something with someone else's voice. But being able to trust my voice, and I think hindsight will give that to you, right? If you thought on this podcast I should do it this way, but then someone else told you, no, I don't think you should do it that way. I think you should do it this way. And then it doesn't produce, it doesn't feel right, but you think, well, this person knows. Because as a young entrepreneur, you need help, right? And I've got a lot of help from a lot of different people helping me in different parts of my business. And so, when you go back and something didn't work out and you think, I should have trusted myself. I should have trusted myself, because I have something inside of me that is calling me we all have a voice, and I think it's important to listen to that voice.
What is a piece of advice that you've received or read somewhere that in the beginning you thought was really good, but later on in life or in business, you found that it wasn't actually true? I know it's a really it's a tougher one to deconstruct.
That's tough. The one that comes to mind is see what's working and just do that. See what someone else is doing on their podcast, just do that. See what someone else is doing with their pomade, just make a pomade like that. See what product is trending and go make that product. But it doesn't work that way. Unless that's authentic to you, then it can work. Then it can work, because it's hard to be original because it's 2024 and there's people that have already done so much of what we're trying to do. So all we can do is be authentic. But in the beginning, but I say that because you do in a way have to emulate the key features in order to start a podcast, probably start a company, start a brand, assemble a team. There are certain foundational building blocks that you do have to reverse engineer. But when it comes to the product that you actually deliver and the way you communicate your product, it's important to do that in your own voice. And again, where I went wrong was when I tried to deliver my products, deliver the messaging, and bring something to market that wasn't authentic to me, because I was just doing what everyone else was doing. And consumers, myself included, we're both consumers, you see right through that. I never wanted to have another Me Too product. I never wanted to just copy, which is why, like, during COVID, people said, why don't you make Mane Tame masks with the lion seal? That'd be sick, right? Mask with lion seal. And I thought, gosh, again, there are companies that all they do is masks. And I don't want to seem, I'm not like Gucci or Chanel where I could do that. Maybe they can, but for us, money is very important. Cash flow is important. I could take that $3,000 that I'm going to buy masks, and I could put that towards media. I could make a few videos. I can go to a show. I could sponsor an event. I could make more products. So, you know, being an entrepreneur, I'm sorry, do you mind if I'm going expanding?
Go for it. Yeah, please do.
Being an entrepreneur is, you know, you asked the biggest obstacle. I imagine it like, you know, we're on an island and you got to get off the island. The island's on fire. The island's on fire and you need to get off the island. What do? You build a raft, okay? You build a raft. Then while you're out there, you sail to another island and you get some resources, and then you build a boat. Your raft turns into a boat. That's what being an entrepreneur is like, okay?
Yeah.
Then what's going to happen? Because you've never built a boat before, you never built a raft, right? Neither have I. Next thing you know, there's a hole in the boat. There's a hole in the boat. There's a hole in the sail, and you're lost. That's being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And if you can find the right thing to fix at the right time, that's going to help you. And in the beginning, you know, that helped me. That always guided me of knowing, okay, well, it's just a small hole. We'll be all right. Let's get on the right course to go towards where we need to go. Or it's a big hole. We're going to drown. We need to plug that hole. Let's just go in circles and be lost, you know? So knowing the differentiation and knowing the timing and the sequence, it comes with experience, but you know, it all comes with also getting guidance, and some guidance is good. You have to take guidance, and some things you figure out when you're on your own, especially when entrepreneurs have partners and neither of you has ever built a raft before or built a podcast before or built a company before.
Yeah.
You know, you have to kind of learn as you go. And I guess the best thing that you hope for is you learn fast.
That is the best analogy I've heard of being an entrepreneur. It's going from island to island and trying to figure it out as you get there, right? That is awesome, man. Richard, I think that that's a beautiful point to stop and really have the audience digest that. I love this conversation. It went in a way where I feel like it needed, because I feel like now we've kind of peeled back the layers and unveiled to even your audience, like who you are, who the person they're getting their product from. And I really, really appreciate you taking the time. You're super busy, man. Like nobody saw this, but he's running around, he's doing things here, and he took the time to have this conversation with me. So I genuinely appreciate that. And man, I can't wait to maybe have another podcast in a year from now and kind of check up on where Maintain is there, is at that next phase.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
Richard, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Real quick, just so everyone can find you, is where can they find you? Where can they find Maintain? What are your social links? Feel free to plug whatever makes sense for you.
Yeah, so for those of you who want to follow us and follow our journey, our Instagram is at Mane Tame Grooming. My Instagram is richardthomas.lugo. On there, we try to unveil what we do behind the scenes. So for those of you who are looking to follow a journey, I think that the best part of Mane Tame, we have wonderful people on the team, but I truly believe that our best assets are our customers. And rather than be a brand that just shows, here's our product, like a painting, if you're an artist, we try to show the painting while it's being made. Someone laying on the floor painting. I'm interested in that. I want to see the soul of the brand. And so I like that. And I invite anyone who, has their own journey and has their own brand that they're on. Let's do it together. The best part of winning is when you do it with friends. So I'm looking forward to staying connected with you and with all your followers.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. We're going to do a mic cheers, okay? Here we go.